She looked at him like he didn't belong there. He stood quietly, holding out his boarding pass with a calm hand, worn, steady, and patient. But the young gate agent didn't even bother hiding the look of disgust on her face. "This is first class," she said flatly, not even glancing at the paper. "You're in the wrong place." The old man didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He simply offered the ticket again, gently. And that was the moment she laughed. Laughed, out loud, in his face. To her, it was obvious. His sweater was too faded. His shoes, too simple. His presence, too ordinary. There was no way someone like him had a seat in first class. But what she didn't know was that this man had built more in his lifetime than she could imagine. And within minutes, everything she believed, everything she thought she knew, was about to collapse right in front of her. Before I tell you how this shocking confrontation ended, I want to share something that's changing people's lives, quietly, but powerfully. If you believe in energy, in intention, and in shaping your own reality, you need to check out the 369 manifestation codes. Inspired by the teachings of Nikola Tesla, this method helps you unlock clarity, abundance, and purpose using the hidden frequencies of the universe. Thousands have already experienced deep transformation. Click the link in the description to start your own shift. Today could be the beginning of something real. Now, back to the airport, and the man who taught everyone at Gate 27 a lesson they'll never forget. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because here, we tell true stories that expose what's hidden, challenge assumptions, and leave you thinking long after the video ends. And this one is no exception. His name was Harold Bennett. He was 80 years old. And despite the years on his face and the silver in his hair, there was a quiet strength in his posture, the kind that doesn't ask for respect, but carries it naturally. To everyone else in line, he was just another elderly man traveling alone. No entourage. No designer luggage. No name tags, business cards, or special attention. But that's exactly how Harold liked it. He had spent over 4 decades in the aviation industry, starting as a young mechanic, then a pilot, then later a co-founder of one of the most respected regional airlines in the country. But very few knew that, because Harold never sought recognition. He didn't believe in status. He believed in service. After his retirement, Harold made it a point to fly just like anyone else, no privileges, no private jets. Just a boarding pass and a backpack. And on that cold morning, with Flight 712 boarding to Denver, he was ready for another simple journey. At least, that's what he thought. The gate area was packed. Delayed flights. Impatient passengers. Tired employees. And in the middle of it all, a young gate agent named Amanda, new to the job, and under pressure to keep things moving. When Harold approached, Amanda didn't even lift her eyes fully. She took one glance at his ticket and said sharply, "Sir, you're in the wrong line." Harold smiled politely. "I believe this is first class, yes?" She rolled her eyes. "It is. That's why I'm saying, step aside." She looked again at the name. Harold Bennett, she read aloud, with an edge of sarcasm. "Really?" "Yes, ma'am," Harold said, his voice warm, steady. Amanda held the ticket up like it was a fake. "Where'd you get this? Someone give it to you?" "No. I booked it myself," he answered. That's when she laughed. Actually laughed. Loud enough for people around to turn their heads. "You expect me to believe you booked a first-class seat on this flight?" she said, smirking. Behind him, a man in a suit muttered, "Come on, just let the guy through." Amanda ignored it. She shook her head and crossed her arms. "Sir, I think you're confused." Harold simply stood there. Silent. Still. Not defensive. Not angry. Just, waiting. Amanda sighed loudly, clearly frustrated. She motioned to a colleague behind the counter. "Hey, can we get someone to verify this? I think this ticket's been tampered with." Her colleague shrugged, looking unsure. Harold gently said, "If you scan it, you'll see it's valid." She didn't like that. "No, I won't scan it until I know where it came from. For all I know, someone printed this in a library." She held it up again. "Honestly, this looks fake." There was a pause. And then, without warning, she tore it. She tore the ticket in half, right there at the gate. The noise in the area stopped. Even the background airport chatter seemed to pause. Someone gasped. Harold looked at the shredded ticket in her hand. He blinked. Then, he slowly looked up into her eyes, and smiled. A calm, knowing smile. The kind that says, "You've made a mistake." Amanda's expression faltered for the first time. "You shouldn't have tried to cheat the system," she said weakly. Harold leaned in, just slightly. "I think," he said quietly, "you should call your supervisor." Amanda scoffed. "Security will be faster." And she did it. She called security. In her mind, she was doing the right thing. Protecting company resources. Stopping a fraud. Keeping things efficient. But what she didn't realize was that the very man she had just humiliated, had once sat on the board that approved the uniform she was wearing. And the moment security arrived, the tide would shift faster than she could imagine. The two security officers approached quickly, their presence enough to shift the entire atmosphere at the gate. Passengers moved aside. A hush fell over the crowd. Amanda straightened her posture, ready to present her case, ready to expose what she believed was a fraud in action. But then something unexpected happened. As one of the officers stepped closer, he froze mid-stride. His eyes locked onto the old man, and recognition washed over his face instantly. "Mr. Bennett?" he asked, carefully. Harold nodded once, calmly. The officer's tone changed immediately. "Sir, I didn't know you were flying with us today. Is everything all right?" Amanda blinked, confused. "Wait, you know him?" The second officer leaned in, whispering to his partner. Both looked visibly uncomfortable now. The first officer turned to Amanda. "Do you know who this is?" She shook her head, now unsure. "This man," he said slowly, "is the co-founder of the airline you work for." Silence. Amanda's face turned pale. The passengers around them began to murmur. Phones were pulled out. Cameras were already rolling. The woman who had laughed just minutes ago, was now frozen. Harold remained quiet, his posture still composed. He wasn't angry. He didn't raise his voice. He just watched, as years of silent dignity began to undo her assumptions, one layer at a time. The radio on the officer's shoulder crackled. A voice came through. Confirming. "Harold Bennett is in the system. First-class ticket. Executive priority clearance. Send the director to the gate. Immediately." Amanda stepped back, her confidence completely drained. I didn't know," she stammered. I didn't think the ticket was real." "I could have told you that," Harold said softly, "if you had taken the time to ask." 10 minutes later, the regional operations director, a man in his 40s wearing a sharp suit and a face full of panic, arrived at the scene. He pushed through the crowd and extended his hand immediately. "Mr. Bennett, please accept my sincerest apologies. This is unacceptable. We'll make this right." Harold shook his hand gently. "It's not me you need to talk to," he said, nodding toward Amanda. The director turned. Amanda stood frozen behind the counter, hands at her sides. "You tore up his ticket?" the director asked, almost not believing it. Amanda could barely speak. "I thought, he didn't look like." Her sentence trailed off. There was no way to finish it that wouldn't make it worse. The director closed his eyes for a moment and then turned back to Harold. "We'll reissue everything. We'll upgrade you further. We'll—" Harold interrupted, kindly. "Just get me on the plane. I'm not here for special treatment." The director nodded. "Of course, sir. And again, we are truly sorry." As Harold walked past the gate, the crowd moved aside. Some whispered his name now. Others nodded respectfully. The man who had been mocked just moments ago was now the center of silent admiration. "Amanda?" She was asked to step away from the counter. Not yelled at. Not humiliated. But removed, quietly, with a supervisor by her side. She didn't resist. There was nothing left to say. Harold took his seat in first class, and the flight took off on time. But the story didn't end there. A video of the incident, captured by a bystander, went viral within 48 hours. Over 12 million views, tens of thousands of comments, and news coverage across the country. The comments were unanimous. "Never judge a book by its cover. That man had more grace than anyone else there. Humility is power in its purest form." But the most powerful comment came from Harold himself, in an open letter shared by the airline days later. "This wasn't about me. I've lived a long life. I've earned both respect and disregard. But what I witnessed that day wasn't an isolated moment, it was a mirror. A reflection of how quick we are to judge, how slow we are to listen, and how often we mistake worth for appearance. I hold no anger toward the young woman who doubted me. I only hope she, and all of us, learn to pause before deciding who someone is. You never know who's in front of you." The airline responded by announcing mandatory staff training in empathy and bias awareness. As for Amanda, she wasn't fired. That was Harold's specific request. Instead, she was given a choice: walk away from the job, or learn from the moment. She chose to stay. She wrote a public apology, not for damage control, but because she was genuinely changed. She said in a follow-up interview, "That day showed me how blind I was. He didn't shame me. He didn't yell. But he held up a mirror I couldn't ignore." And that's the heart of this story. In a world obsessed with speed, status, and surface impressions, we forget the power of stillness. The value of listening. The depth that can exist in silence. Harold didn't teach a lesson by force. He taught it by standing still. By holding his ground. By letting the truth speak louder than ego ever could. The next time you look at someone and think they don't belong, pause. Ask yourself why you think that. And then, think again. Because the person you judge too quickly might just be the one who created the very opportunity you're standing in. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story spoke to you, please consider subscribing to the channel. We share true, powerful narratives that uncover hidden truths and inspire reflection. Leave a comment with your thoughts. What would you have done in Harold's place? And if you're on your own journey of growth, manifestation, or transformation, don't forget to check out the 369 manifestation codes in the description. It's more than a method, it's a mindset shift that could unlock exactly what you've been waiting for. Like the video, share it with someone who needs this message today, and remember. The quietest person in the room is often the one who already knows the ending. Until next time, stay grounded, stay kind.